Get the money like a cashier. Customer, clientele. I was broke, that was last year. Getting money like a cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Benjamin, nothing less. I was broke, that was last year. Don't change them. I never switched up. Been down since day one. Stay social. People change them.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of DBT, Dope Black Thoughts Live. I'm Stefania.
Mike Carter, good afternoon. Or actually, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We got the Paperboy with us.
Paperboy.
Nice to see everyone again. We are here today, and we have a couple of wonderful guests in our community. Our topic today is healing. And so I just want to introduce my guests right off. We have Shana Shaw. Shana, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to introduce you, Linda. I don't think we can hear you. We can't hear you.
Yep.
There we go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Shana Shaw. I am the Executive Director of the Compound of Compassion.
Nice. And then we have Linda Colbert. Linda, tell us about your group there.
My name is Linda Colbert, as you said it. I am the spokesperson and grief support facilitator for the FAVA organization, which is Family Against Violent Acts. Our leader and founder is Diane Cooks, and we are present in the Montbello community, but we operate virtually abroad.
Wonderful. We have had a lot of shootings and violence in our community lately. And so we thought it was very important to take our temperature, to take a pause and to see where we are as a people with healing, with mental health, with grief, and with things that are going on in our community. So we were happy to have these two wonderful young ladies on and help us kind of talk about what's going on in our community. Shana, tell us a little bit more about your endeavors and what you do. And then we're going to start talking about, what's been going on in our community and what we can do to help each other.
Absolutely. Well, the Compound of Compassion is an organization that serves as a liaison. We basically connect services that are in community to the people that need the services. We have a number of entities. We have the Women's Wellness. We have our Generation Drive-Through, which is all youth-led, youth organized, youth ran. Our Halfway Home, which is reentry, and our Container Home Project, and our Veterans Assistance Services.
Nice. And so, Linda, what does your organization do? I know personally about FAVA because it's been a part of my life since Linda and I go to church together, and so it's been a part of my life for a long time. But tell us about it so we know what you're doing.
Well, FAVA is, again, a faith-based organization founded by 5 mothers, founded by our leader, but originated with 5 mothers, 2 of which had children that were victims and killed through gunfire, one being our leader and founder, whose son was shot and is now permanently in a wheelchair due to that same type of violence. And then 2 others who were victims on the other side because they had children that were incarcerated. And as these ladies sought out support, and they just found it in one another. And so it started out with those 5 women in 2007. And as time progressed, we started out with a lot of support from our local church because there were no real access points to resources for the Montbello, Green Valley, and that greater Denver community. So as time progressed, they began to meet in person to support each other in grief, and the numbers grew. And by the time I came on board, there were 50 plus members of all genders meeting, both genders, meeting to support one another. So I took on the endeavor in 2017 or so to facilitate that. And of course, then pandemic hit. Um, Previous years we've had Heal the Hood, which brings the communities together to just try to collaborate and come together and share resources. We did that in the park out here in Montbello. Our last live meeting, there were more than 1,000 community members that came through looking for those resources and just to come together and fellowship. As we moved forward from there, we ended up virtual because of the pandemic. But what we found out was that grief expanded, it became complicated, it became more than just shootings. Families were affected in all types of ways, including pandemic deaths. So we decided to go virtual and keep going. So we have a virtual meeting every Wednesday where anyone can log in, and we have various topics to help support from both a mental health perspective and just navigating that road to healing. We certainly have a pajama giveaway every year as well. We have a bike giveaway every year in our community. And we also have started what's called Get the Mess Off Your Chest, which allows our young people to come together and to meet and to share grief from their perspective.
And I just want to make sure that and I know this, but I just want to make sure that the support group that you have every Wednesday, it's not just for victims of violence, but also those who are affected in any way, including the people whose family members may have been part of the person's life who inflicted the violence. So people who have children that are incarcerated for taking a life, but not only them, but the family of the victims. So it includes everybody, correct?
Absolutely, because we believe that loss is indeed loss and pain is indeed pain. And when we can navigate those two simultaneously and bring those families together, that's how the community starts the process of healing. Because certainly there are various circumstances that lead to the situation on both ends.
Mm,
And so we want to be supportive in every way. And so you're absolutely right, Stefania.
great. Shana, with all the shootings that we've had, I mean, we turn on the news and there's another shooting and another, somebody, there have been some deaths, but there have been some that have been shot and that are recovering. what what do you think is most important for us to do at this point in time as a community and as an individual having to deal with the things that are going on?
I think probably the most important thing right now is answering the call of our youth. Most of the shootings that are taking place right now are, youth on youth violence, and what we haven't done as adults is teach our children conflict resolution in a way that is healthy, where we can have a conversation and agree to disagree, and everybody have the opportunity to return home safely.
Mhm.
And so, because we as adults haven't modeled that behavior, our children are navigating in community the only way that they know how. They're carrying guns because they're in fear, and they're in fear to be in community. And to me, that's a fail again on our part, because we haven't created a community that is safe so that they don't have to feel like they need to carry guns and resolve their issues in a way that is violent. And so until we as adults start to model the behavior that we expect our children to perform, um, we won't have the opportunity to heal our community. And so it starts, from the top down, right?
Very important. In the news cycle lately, I did see, where was it in? I don't remember where it was, but the young lady addressed the school board, which Michael Carter here is part of Aurora Public School Board. A young lady addressed the school board and said that her children weren't going to wear a mask, and that before her children would wear a mask, she would show up with every gun loaded and confront the school on that Monday. And I thought in my head, of course, I thought, first of all, I don't think anybody would have been able to walk out of that place without being arrested without making a threat like that against a school. The second thing I thought is her children are watching her resolve conflict by threatening somebody with a gun.
Absolutely.
Strange that nobody else said that. And you picked up on that, Shana, right? I love that you said that. I mean, that's very important in our community. We have to be the example.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in. I want to make sure two things. Make sure I get my notes in. Make sure you guys put all your information in the chat, so in the comments, so people can find your organizations and make sure they can reach out to you. As Sister Gallegos indicated, I am a member of the board, but I'm not here as a member of the board. I'm here as just a member of the community. Two things you kind of touched on. Uh, I know Aurora Public Schools has now literally um, introduced mental health for every child. It's a virtual mental health for every child. It's through the organization's called Hazel Health. But every child is allowed to speak to a mental health person, and so I'm going to back off for that. But I want to talk to Ms. Shaw. You brought up veterans, and like I said, I'm just a member of the community, but I'm also a veteran, and I know. One of the things I talk about is being third generation. So I have both the healing and the scars because I understand. Because sometimes when you make it back, you don't make it back.
That's right.
There is a change. It just is what it is. There's a change when you go through military training and indoctrination. It just is, and sometimes that's not conducive to being back out there. Talk to me about how you're helping veterans, and what do you mean by when you're out there working with veterans and trying to get them in and try to give them some help?
I think that that's really important. One of the reasons why all of our programming exists through Compound is from a lived experience, an encounter with someone who was in need of services that we weren't able to find for us and by us. Not that it didn't exist, but there are services that our community just needs to be tailored to us. And so one of the things that the compound offers is an opportunity for veterans to get services that they're afforded to for serving this country, and just being able to navigate through that paperwork and what that looks like in terms of, being at one rating and increasing that rating, getting housing, uh, jobs, all the things that you would think a veteran wouldn't have to struggle to obtain, for someone who has literally laid their life on the line for this country. Yet, those services are really hard to kind of tap into, and just the red tape that is created for veterans to be able to receive those services. So we have, and another thing is that our organization is 100% women led, women of color. And so the women that are veterans that have mastered that system in some way or another, are available to other veterans to help them navigate through those services and be able to obtain the benefits that they're afforded to.
And I'm not going to hold all your time, Ms. Shaw. I'm not gonna leave you out, Ms. Colbert. But literally, people look it up. The meaning of red tape comes from veterans trying to get their pension. It literally means red tape. And I can say, when I got out, what she's talking about is the process of going from being an active duty member to being a veteran. You think it would be just, hi, I'm here, and it's not. It's not. I don't know how many cycles I went through just trying to get to my GI Bill.
Right.
Like my Army College Fund. How many? And you would think it would be easy, and it's not. And so I got to thank you just for that, just for finding these gentlemen, finding these veterans out there, and help. We have a giant. I don't know if anybody knows this, but if you've been to Colfax and 225, there is a giant Veterans Administration Hospital, and they are begging to get people in there for services. So, Once again, make sure all your information in the chat. If you guys know a veteran who needs services, I'm putting it on Miss Shaw right now. Call her, get her some service. Get them some service.
I just wanted to also tap into just the fact of the topic of healing. When we talk about healing our community and what that looks like from a two gen approach, we again, most of our programming is centered and focused on youth and young adults. But if we are working on one generation and not encompassing the whole household, then how are we really, healing our community as a whole? So, veterans are such an important part when you look at our houseless neighbors and the number of houseless neighbors who have military gifting to that. It just, there's so much in our society that doesn't make sense on so many different levels. And so one of the things that I would just kind of ask of our community is start to really acknowledge the things that make us broken as an organ, as a community as a whole, and really start to tackle those things, and how we treat our veterans, how we treat our seniors. We got to we got to go back to some of the old school stuff, because that's really what got us through.
Mm-hmm. So then, Linda, coming to you with the same question and all the things that we've seen in our community, what do you think is your takeaway that you could have the community acknowledge or recognize for you?
Well, Shayna's last statement is quite the segue to that, because I'm an educator by career, and what I have found and what does not change is the need to navigate, help our youth navigate through trauma, because typically what happens is that as adults we can recognize, we have the skill and the wherewithal to recognize what we're going through as adult individuals, and not realizing that the impact is cyclical, because it's going to affect the whole household. So oftentimes when we don't know what to say to our children, we say statements like "man up," or "get yourself together," or "don't cry," or "this is my expectation," not addressing what is the root cause of the problem. And so, as we navigate now in this day and time, in this present time, through all this complicated grief, we have children that have literally buried loved one after loved one. We have children that have buried their friends. We have children that have witnessed these shootings. We have children that have been victimized and a part of these shootings. And the only way that we're really going to address their issues is to do just that, is to acknowledge that mental health needs are real, and that we need to really embrace therapy, embrace support groups, and let them talk. That's why we address it as "get the mess off your chest." When we meet with these young people, we allow them a forum where they can express openly without any huge guardrails from adults, other than helping them navigate. So I think if we can address the trauma, the origin of the trauma, and then we can start coming together as families and really knowing how to communicate.
That's important. I remember there was some time ago that there was a popular, I don't know if it's still popular, I'm just so not in the know anymore, but, people used to use that saying, I feel some type of way. And I, in talking with different therapists over the years, had come to recognize that that's not a good way to handle or to admit your emotions, because you want to be able to put a word to what you're feeling, a word to how you're feeling, and label that. Instead of saying I feel some type of way, go ahead and say I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm sad, so that we can begin to get to the root of the reason why you feel that way, so that the healing can begin. that's uh,
Absolutely.
I love what you're doing for the youth. I love that that we have two communities here, two women here that are willing to help our community, seniors, veterans, our youth, and everyone in between find the help that they need, so that they can heal from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And community consists of each and every one of us. And that is what's so key. The key component is that if you leave out one piece, then you've in essence left out the community, because until we can all come together in one space and realize again what the root causes are, what are each of our individual and collective contributions that are going to help resolve it. And it didn't happen overnight. So certainly the healing is a process, and a process is just a step by step series of changes that leads us to a place of healing. And
Mhm.
until we acknowledge those feelings, to your point, Sister Stefania,
Mhm.
we go over every Wednesday the steps of grief, the stages of grief. And
Mhm.
once you acknowledge each stage, you don't have to stay stuck there, but you have to acknowledge it to know that it exists. And that way you can move to the next step of healing.
What do you say to the people who think, I'm old school. I grew up in a time where my father didn't acknowledge that mental health was a thing. Um, I'm still part of that era where Black people don't talk to therapists. That was what mental health was taboo. Talking to a therapist was taboo. What do you say to those people? Shana, let's start with you. What do you say to those people that probably need therapy but don't think they need therapy?
Well, I think you have to think of therapy in a different mindset. I'm the same way. I come from the same era. When I became widowed at 27 with three small children, the first thing they said was, you need to get yourself and your children into therapy. But the people that were coming to talk to us didn't look like me. And so for me, it was a situation where I felt like I had to get them to a level of understanding before we could get to a level of understanding. And I was already exhausted by then. And so one of the things that I know in today's society is that that mindset is starting to change, just because people are recognizing within themselves that hurt folk hurt folk. And
Hmm.
in order to not be a damaging factor in community, you have to address those things that have hurt you. I loved what you said about make me feel some type of way. I started, the song in my head, but that is kind of, how we have come to articulate our feelings. But until you can call that thing what it is, you can't actually heal from it. And so I think that for us, you have to look at it different, because therapy could be so many different things. It could be, my outlet is dance, or my outlet is music or art, or spoken word, and that is how I am able to first acknowledge my feelings and then do something about them. So I think we have to start looking at therapy from a holistic perspective as well, and finding ways to release those things that keep us trapped within inside of ourselves.
Is 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 so I get it. Therapy doesn't mean the same or look the same for everybody, and it's an individual tailored event that everyone, if you feel you need it, you should get out there and get it. What what are some different ways that we can I just want to make sure that everyone understands that if you need to talk to somebody, please do. If
Yes,
you feel that spoken word and dancing, all you need is an outlet, then by all means, do that as well. But there's nothing wrong with saying to yourself, I need to talk to somebody, and I need
absolutely.
to talk to somebody who can help me figure out what's going on in me,
We
especially if you can't put a word to it.
Absolutely. We did a winter camp over the Christmas break for our youth and young adults. They wrote and put together, choreographed, directed a play in 8 days. It was called Exposed. And VPAC and Dr. Aset Miriam put these youth together. And it was all about mental health. And one of the things that we saw in these youth, some of the youth who were very shut in and just traumatized by a lot of the events that have recently occurred in the shootings, have been directly affected. We saw them blossom from being a part of community. So yes, it looks like dance and it looks like art, right? But you are surrounded by people who love you and who embrace you and who sit down and have conversation and build relationship with you. And that's very therapeutic. For me, I'm a servant. And so how I deal with a lot of situations in my life is to give back to my community. When I'm giving and I'm doing for others, it makes me feel better. So there's a lot of what I'm saying in that is that there's a lot of ways that you can find to heal situations, and in being in those places, in those spaces, God will always bring you who you need to give you the message that you need to be able to get what you need to keep going. And so it doesn't always look like sitting on, laying on somebody's couch and watching the clock tick. It can
Right.
look like a number of different ways. And we all have those tools in our wellness toolbox to be able to go to find those outlets and then find the help and services that we need.
Right. Linda, did you want to add to that?
Absolutely, if I could piggyback, because what Shane is saying is really a prerequisite to getting to the place of that higher level, excuse me, of therapy, because trust and connectivity have to happen before people will relinquish their fears and their mindsets that have been preset. There's a saying that says, hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Oftentimes it's just connected to the inability to build relationships. And when we're working with students, even at the school, that is primary. That's how you get to the root cause of behaviors, achievement or non-achievement, is to first build layers of trust. That's what we do with Fava on the support group. We don't have lines of rules. We're more of, if you want to come on, keep your mic muted, keep your camera off, and just listen. You have that opportunity. If you need to speak, you have that opportunity. We encourage journaling. And over time, we're faith based, of course, and the Bible repeatedly says in the process of time. So over time, people are able to build up those staminas. And even again, to Shayna's point, there are more open doors now. We have a partnership with a group of Black therapists at Favor, that we can refer you to somebody that you feel more comfortable with. What manifested over a period of time is not going to be healed overnight, but we certainly have processes in place now. And especially, I think a lot of minds have changed during pandemic. When people get desperate, they're more open. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes that level of desperation to navigate past your fears and say, I'm going to trust the process and see what happens. Shayna, I'm a poet. And so I agree with you. That's where my therapy started, over years of trauma. And as I navigated through that, I began to trust people that embraced the gift. And then it went forward into being able to facilitate to people to trust me with their vulnerabilities and realize that, you know what, we need each other. And I might need somebody to help me through
Yes,
what I'm going through right now.
absolutely.
What did I question for both, Ms. Colbert and Ms. Shaw, dealing with, I wouldn't just not just youth, but male Black youth,
Yeah.
and circling back, when you talking about people going to therapy, I would think, that population would be the most difficult. And if not, talk to me about dealing with young Black men. You see the hurt, you see the pain, you can see the trauma. Talk to me about getting them to see the trauma.
Um, I'll start with, again, I work with middle schoolers, and it makes me a bit emotional, so bear with me. I lost a former scholar to gunfire a few years back, and we were quite close. And it definitely goes back to, for me, to building the relationships so that they can trust in what the information you're sharing. Oftentimes we come with the iron fist of, you do this just because. I remember hearing that all my youth, just because, and really, really wanting to know the whys. And men, young black men, have a level of curiosity and a level of distrust, all wrapped up together. So they come into the school trusting no one, oftentimes not even their peers. So it's important to build the relationships that may make a difference. I had a really good relationship with this young man. He had videos where he was thanking his teachers for their contribution to his life, but unfortunately, some of the missing components were male mentors of the same skin tone,
Mm.
places to go and to hang out, and just those little small things that we might sometimes overlook become the big picture things that can cause the end of one's life, or dispel their hopes and their dreams. So just continuing, there's a saying in the church, each one reach one,
Mhm.
until we reach them all.
That's
Mm.
absolutely.
Amy, did you?
Yeah, I was just what she said. Uh,
Yeah, right.
like,
Sometimes that's all you need to say.
what she said, and with the tears and the emotion, I experienced the loss of one of the young men that was working very closely with my organization last year during the pandemic. I have a 20-year-old son who has been on both ends of the gun. Um, and so I think when we talk about our young men, for Black women, period, whether you're a mother or not, you can't help, but to have that sinking heart syndrome, because there's so many barriers and so many obstacles that stacked against them just by being brought into the world. And it's just a consistent uphill fight for them, a battle for them. And I think, even for me, and I guess I'm speaking more so from a mother's perspective, is not really understanding the level of rage that exists by the absence of a male presence. um,
Mm.
it, it just really starts there, as far as I'm concerned. And so one of the things that I know that I tried to do with, my son, was consistently surround him with Black men who, were positive and thinkers and doers. He attended an all boys school, just to be in the environment of that, that energy, and be okay being who he was. He has two older sisters, and then there's me. So just, being around male energy. And so I think when you talk about introducing therapy or healing to young Black kings, you have to, you can't do it without some representation there. There has to just be somebody there that they can relate to. And I'm always, no matter whose son it is, I'm looked at as a mother. But I can never teach a man how to be a man
Mhm.
and understand and be able to relate to some of those aches and those pains that young men go through. And so I pride, myself with surrounding myself with positive Black men who I trust, that I know will give them the nuggets and tools, if nothing else, just a freaking hug sometimes, you know what I'm saying? And it be okay, and it not be looked at any kind of way. I just think that you just have to have the representation there, so that they have somebody that they can relate to and trust, and then that door is open, and you build from there.
Right. We have
And
a
if I
guest.
could add, Stefania, just
Yeah.
really quickly, because
Mhm.
it's in my heart as well, is we have to recognize signs. We have warning signs.
Yes.
Um, to be transparent, I have two sons, and my youngest was diagnosed with late emergence schizophrenia.
Mm.
And I didn't recognize the signs because he was just trying to fit in to life's component. So
Mhm.
he started with some gang stuff and all types of these different things, and his acting out at school was just, it became really egregious. But I did not know. I was not aware because mental health was so taboo. And so I had to teach myself, to give myself the knowledge to figure out what was going on. So when something does not look right, as mothers, as educators, as community members, and it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And it might be time for someone on some level to intervene. Thank you for
Mm,
allowing me to share that.
yeah, of
Absolutely.
course.
I
Mike,
guess
go ahead.
I want to once again. I got to thank both of you, Miss Shaw and Miss Colbert. Two things I just want to bring up, and you kind of struck me that surrounding your son with strong role models, positive role models. One thing I never had a black male principal, and my son already as a freshman is past me because he has a black male principal. It may mean nothing, but what I'll say is without that positive role model, without that maybe just somebody looking at it, allows the black male to just fall through the cracks. It just if nobody was paying attention, it just allowed um, to fall through the cracks. And so I'm having that black male role model, having somebody positive that even if they don't look at you, you can look up to. I think that's incredible. The second thing you brought up, and and this is for everybody out there. Um, no matter how strong somebody looks, doesn't mean they're not going through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we are going on the anniversary of one of the baddest lawyers I ever knew in law school. Took his own life,
Oh my.
February 23rd.
Oh my.
And we, because there wasn't that many of us, thought we were holding each other together. But we didn't know the trauma he was seeing until it was too late. Hey man, can you help me with this? Yes, he was there to help you. Hey, can you help me move? Can you help me write this paper? Can you help me? But we, because of that masculinity, because of who we didn't know he was going through pain. We didn't know he was going through trouble. And there was no Miss Shaw. There was no Miss Colbert um, before he took his own life. So I just wanted to share that with you and say thank you again.
Mike, does that change the way you view your own children now, especially your son, with knowing how, like Shauna said, we have to emulate what we want. We have to practice what we preach. Does that cause you to do anything different?
So what I said in the beginning is I'm a third generation Army brat.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the discipline that I dealt with in my household from here up to, you know, asking for a respite and getting, well, call your grandfather. And your grandfather's like, well, you know what's about to happen, right? Like that layer upon layer of this is the way it is. And when I became a father, no, no, I will carry that burden. I will carry that with me because I'm not putting that on my children. And I think that's part of just being a father. Like, I'll take the bullet. I had to deal with go get a switch. You know, I had to deal with whatever concoction black mothers and black fathers use to discipline their children. I had to deal with that. It stops with me. And that's a personal choice that it is what it is, but it stops with me. And I think that's what it means to be a father. I'll take that bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, we're coming. That reminds me that also recently in the news we saw Regina King lost her son to
Yeah,
suicide,
suicide.
and so that's something that we need to recognize as prevalent in our community as well. And when we talk about healing, Mike, you hit on it, and that is we need to try and recognize those warning signs in others as well as recognizing them in ourselves and saying, perhaps I should reach out to somebody. I can't even imagine what she's going through losing her
Absolutely.
only son.
Absolutely.
to suicide.
We were just talking about what a giant Regina King was. We literally
right,
were having a conversation about, look at this beautiful black woman. Look at all from 227.
Right.
right,
From
Right.
227.
right. To the harder they fall,
Yes.
The harder they fall. Like, look at
right.
this beautiful
Like
black,
that show was everything. That movie was it.
and this beautiful black woman, her son was hurting to the point where he took his own life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what's so difficult about suicide? My oldest son had two half brothers, and both hung themselves 6 months apart.
Oh,
And imagine the cyclical fallout, the domino effect.
mm,
So it doesn't just end with the fact that her son took his life. There's a domino effect, especially
yeah,
under the umbrella of influence.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it just keeps happening in our community until we come to a resolve where we're so closely knit together that
Mm-hmm.
we're back to this perspective of the village,
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
and where we're looking out for each other's children, and
Yeah,
we're watching and we're catching those signs. Maybe I can't catch them because my plate is full, but Stefania saw something and it just didn't look right.
yeah.
That's right.
Or he
You
said
know,
something. There was something that just didn't sit right when he said it, in my spirit. And we all need to be vigilant. You're right about talking to each other about that, but also we need to be receptive as
That
people when we're given that information, to not sweep it under the rug and act like it's not something that we want to talk about.
yeah.
right?
We've got to be
Absolutely.
vigilant.
Yeah.
I love my children so much, I can't help but love yours.
Yeah, there you go. I
That
love that. Yeah.
that says it all.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
this is the
takes
guy. Here
a-
goes. You're gonna make everybody cry.
I know, right?
I open up. I need a tissue, and I don't feel like reaching. But I'll let you guys see. I'm pretty.
Girl, just go on and snot if you have to.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't start because my nose will start running. Yeah.
Right. That's the worst. Right. So then, ladies, we have just a few more minutes, but I really want to talk about. Is there anything that you absolutely want to make sure that we're hearing you say, and that you think that as a community we need to address? Let's start with you, Linda.
I'll say this. Please know that you are not alone.
Mm.
There is nothing new under the sun. As I'm sitting here on this broadcast tonight, life keeps happening. I just facilitated a grief support week before last that was about attaining balance when life keeps happening.
Yes.
And then yesterday we talked about processing the pain. And what you find out, even if you start out with a group support and not an individual therapist, you'll find out that you are not by yourself, that things you are going through, someone else is experiencing or has experienced and may have the tools and the wherewithal to help you navigate through it. And
Mhm.
that there is no pace that is required. You get to take life at your own pace. Just keep moving. Don't stop.
Mm,
That's right.
mm.
Right. And it's also important to just get back to community. Like, when we know that we have people that care for us and people that we can go to in a community setting, sometimes you can't go to the people that are closest to you. You have to go kind of outside your circle. But as a community, we have a duty to heal our community so that there is that level of trust, so that people are not feeling alone and feeling abandoned and feeling rejected and feeling isolated. And
Mhm.
we have to do that by just changing our mindset and showing up in a way that we would want someone to show up for us, and not in a way that we feel like we have to be guarded because of the mistrust that exists within our community. That's from our churches, from our schools, all the way down. There's some repairing that us as a Black community needs to really commit to doing, so that we have a wraparound service. We have every single thing we need right here in our own community. We have our doctors, we have our lawyers, we have our architects, we have our principals, our teachers, our bankers. We shouldn't want for anything. We should not be lacking as a community of people for nothing. And we shouldn't be in this place. And we're the only ones that's going to save ourselves. Nobody's coming for us. And so
that's right.
Pull it together, and we have to get it together, and we have to start using the word "I'm sorry," and we have to start repairing communities so that we can start healing. And it starts right here first. And then once I can come to you and say, "Sister, I offended you, I apologize," then we can start as a community healing each other.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up this to one of our people. Yep, there it is. Brittany Gallego said mental health for the Black community is lacking, not just in the community, but in the workplace for us. It was a struggle for her to take a mental health leave of absence for mental health reasons after working through the pandemic. But it was easy for other her coworkers who were not minorities. And so we need to make sure that we're addressing that as well. I mean, here we are talking about bringing it back to, our community. That's very important that you touched on that, Shana, because just our jobs sometimes take us through. And when there's so many times when we were the token, who do we talk to? Who do we go to about the struggles that we're going through and the things that we're feeling at our workplace? Right. Once again, there's another opportunity for us to make sure that we're reaching out. We're Ms. Gallegos, I know that Britt Gallegos, I know that you're listening, but sometimes it's a matter of going outside of your workplace and making sure that you're tapping into resources like Shana Shaw and Linda Colbert's their support groups, and making sure that you're getting the help that you needed. All of us are.
Absolutely. And having those courageous conversations, Britt, have those courageous conversations, because the perception is we're only going to go so far and then we're going to pull back. The perception is we're still on the leash. You have to release yourself from the choke chain and take the chances. I know we all got bills, so to speak, but after a while you have to say, well, I'm not understanding because when I checked the handbook or when I went to this point or that point, because there's some things that are allotted you just based on the benefits of the job.
Right.
And so if you can see someone else navigate it easier, it does create a point of contention, certainly. But we're still fighting. But we fought out of slavery. We fought through the civil rights movement. We're still fighting. And I say to you, be courageous and fear not. Have those courageous conversations. I put my email in the chat. I would be more than happy to help you navigate any situation that exists, because there are entities like the EEOC and other places that will make certain that your rights are not pushed up against. But I think what I hear you saying is that it's just so much more difficult for you because of the melanin in your skin. So to that note, I also applaud you for still making the effort to do so.
Absolutely.
Right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yep. You win.
Yes.
By not backing down and giving them the power. You kept your power and you win. So
Absolutely.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That you endured. And I hate to say endured, but you didn't give up. You didn't let them overpower you. And sometimes that's what it's about, is taking back our power. But the resources that are out there for everybody, we want to make sure that you have them again. So once again, I don't know if people are tuned in later or were here from the beginning of the show, but Shane, I want you to tell us about your what is it? Compassion for
it's the compound of compassion. Yes,
okay.
Compound of compassion. We are pretty much building safe havens all over the world. Our logo is a butterfly. We want to be like McDonald's. When you see the golden arc and you're going to get some nice hot French fries, when you see that butterfly for the compound of compassion, you know that it's a safe place for you to come and heal holistically. And we have people in our community that if you need a script, we can write you a script as well. However you want to navigate through your healing, we're open to receive you first of all, welcome you to the village, and then help you heal and hopefully find healing within ourselves as we help one another. We can be reached at the compound. It is compassionforfree.org and compassionforfree@gmail.com.
I
Or
think that's
.org.
what I was why I was mixing it up because the email
Yes.
is so compassion for free, and that's the number four compassion the number four free dot dot
ORG.
.org. All right, I love it. Linda, tell us about FAVA again and all the support groups that you have out there. You
Yes.
deal a lot with the youth, and I do want to point out, Shana, that you said earlier you deal with a lot of veterans, a lot of seniors, and a lot of our older people in the community who need to have some healing, who need to have someone to talk to, who need some therapy. Linda, you deal with a lot of our youth and a lot of our women who've experienced violence or been a part of a violent act. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. We also have had some men in our community join as well.
I love it.
However, we have expanded beyond violent acts. Again, pandemic was a lesson for us all to see the various areas of grief and loss that need to be addressed. So when we meet every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, if you want more information, you can go to favadenver.org. It's in the chat, as well as you can send me an email at sweetsdestiny.com to find out additional information for our meeting times. I can also share with you when our next session for Get the Mess Off Your Chest for our young people is. But every single week we meet on Wednesdays, and we want to allow you space to just listen or to talk or to navigate through whatever that loss is. If you have a child incarcerated, if you have a child that was taken by a gun act or a violent act, or if you just lost someone and you are hurting, if you lost a job or a relationship, we're trying to meet the entire person so that we can become whole together.
Awesome. Mike, you touched on it earlier too. The Aurora Public Schools has set up some links for the children that have been affected in the community or feel like they're being affected in the community. Just going to schools these days is hard, you know. And now that we've done it online and we've done it in person, what are what did you share?
I put it in the chat.
Okay.
Every student at Aurora Public Schools has at least one meeting with a therapist, no questions asked, and then can go forward from there. You know, but regardless of why, if you just need that one day, that's the day you need to talk to somebody. All right, let's go, and that's provided for free by Aurora Public Schools through it's a telehealth company called Hazel Health, and so that's out there, and I put that in the chat for you guys as well. I just want to say really quick, you know, awesome. Thank you to our three awesome, Black women. I gotta hang up now and call my mama. Y'all got me all in my feelings too. Everybody started crying, so I gotta hang up and call my mama. But you all, both of you, Miss Colbert and Miss Shaw, you now have been promoted to Sister Shaw and Sister Colbert. I think it just comes with the ability to give me a side eye like Sister Diego. But thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you.
And please keep in mind our founder. She is on the line. She's not pictured. She's on a health sabbatical, but there is no one like the Queen of Montbello.
Yes,
the awesome,
Mama D.
Mama D. Yes,
everybody
indeed.
knows
Mama
Yes,
D.
indeed.
Yes. Love you,
Diane,
Mama.
do you want to come on and say hi real quick? You don't have to do your camera, but just unmute your mic and just tell everybody hello if you're there.
Yeah, I'm still here. Hello. There was an awesome conversation. You ladies did a beautiful job, and I want to thank you all because me and Shana, we work together. Even though she's in Aurora and we're in Montbello, we are community partners. Absolutely. And so I can't say thank you enough for Sister Gallegos for having this podcast, and you too, Mr. Carter, because I think that a lot of people need to be informed what is really happening out here, and this is another resource that people can tap in. Thank you so much.
Love you.
Love you.
Love
too.
you.
So that's it, everybody. Let me tell you something. It's no easy job to cry with eyelashes on. They get cold and sticky. So y'all lucky I didn't rip these things off. Yeah.
Let it go.
I need to be in now, for real. But thank you, ladies, so much for coming on the show and sharing with us all that you have. For all the people in our community, we love you. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need help. What's not okay is to not get it. Yes. So we've given you some tools. These young ladies are open to receiving messages, emails. We didn't say phone calls, emails. Reach out. They have many ways that they can assist you, including referring you, but welcoming you in is the first part. And they both said that they are willing to do that. They welcome you. They welcome one. They welcome all. We normally end with a dope black thought. You've given us so many pearls. I feel like it's hard for me to ask you to give another. I mean, I caught them all. I mean, Shana, you said the level of rage that exists from the absence of a male presence in the home. Man, that hit me. And Linda, you said you reached one. You tell me it again. I mean, I'm going to mess it up.
Reach one, and together we can reach everyone.
That's right. Yeah. But if you have one more dope black thought, we normally end with a dope black thought. If there's anything that you want to share real quick, we have about 4 minutes, which is plenty of time, but give us a dope black thought.
Well, I'm going to just say this. Just the mere fact that we have been given the opportunity to be blessed with any form of melanin in our skin gives us a favor that other people don't have. And it gives us the opportunity to present ourselves in the kingdom as queens and as kings and princes and princesses. And we should think nothing less of ourselves than what we were created to be. Don't give up on your royal priesthood, but give in to the intelligence and the knowledge and the ability that is God given to you.
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
That's the whole period right there.
That'll preach. That's what my pastor used to say, right, Linda? That'll preach.
That'll preach.
Can you follow that up? What can you tell us, babe?
No, I cannot. That's all up, you know, at the end of the day. Yes, we are royalty and we have to walk in that and know who we are. When we know who we are and whose we are, then we can move in that vein. I just always say a man with a booger in his nose has no friends. Be a friend.
Be a friend. Yes.
I love it. We're going to end on that happy note. I love it. Well, thank you both ladies for coming on. Anybody who needs their information, it has been linked in the chat several times. Please look them up. Please reach out. If you know somebody who you think may need help, please, let's not ignore any more warning signs. We don't need any more people hurting and that hurt not being addressed. Share this information. Get it out there to the people who may need it. We love you all. Behind the scenes, we have Marcus out there. I don't know if he wants to come in or if he wants to say anything, but this was a great show. Thank you both for coming on. I love it. Love you both.
Thank you.
What is love? It's a drug. Let it rotate, then get back in it. Calling me an Uber just to get back to you. Use the cash out like pay, I send it. Is it really worth the wait? I don't get it. Divide and gravitate. Taste that wet emotion.